Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to a next installment of the Admissions Partner Program webinar series. If I look a little different, it's because I'm standing at my desk now. I got one of those cool Desk things. Work is a whole new world now. So happy to be here today, talk a little bit about unit visits, kind of those things that we can do to work with students to get them excited about the Coast Guard and excited about the Coast Guard Academy, using the resources around the country, to make sure that we use them at our full disposal and understand kind of how to go about doing that. So I'll touch on a little bit of those various aspects of unit visits in the next coming slides. Throughout the presentation, you're welcome to provide me any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback. I'm happy to respond to those as they come. And it is Parents Weekend right now, so I saw a bunch of parents earlier today. If there are any parents or interested folks watching right now or parents of future cadets, I want you to know about the Admissions Partner Program. It's a fantastic volunteer opportunity. You get to work with amazing young students out there across the country and the world. Find out more information online and then contact our office to see if you can qualify for participation. So with that, let's get started. And speak of one of our parents, Miss Monique Wong. Ms. Wong was here this morning. She's all over the place. Thank you so much for signing on this afternoon. All right, on to the next slide. So around the country, depending on where you're located, and you can see that there are some large, rather blank spots that are there in the middle of the country, but you can see that there are a number of large concentrations along the coastal regions, Alaska, Hawaii, Sector Guam, Sector Puerto Rico, or San Juan, Puerto Rico. These concentrations of Coast Guard units often correlate with Coast Guard platforms such as cutters, air stations, and small boat stations. They also contain district offices, sector offices, Coast Guard bases. So there's lots of opportunity to get in and around Coast Guard assets using kind of this sort of layout for the country. So what I brought up here was a map of most of the sectors around the United States for Coast Guard sectors. There's also Coast Guard bases and the Coast Guard district offices. Now, the larger the office, like Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C., or your Coast Guard district offices, there's a little less to see, so it won't be as kind of thrilling for a student. But if you talk to those sector offices or those bases, oftentimes they have contacts with folks who are stationed at air stations nearby, small boat stations, cutters. So those are great ins to get for your unit visit idea, generator. So if you're trying to come up with ideas, and a lot of times it just depends on where you're located. So if you're in landlocked parts of the country, it may be a little bit harder for you, but recognize that all up and down the Mississippi River, Lake Tahoe, on some of the larger lakes, the larger bodies of water and larger rivers, there may be, at least small boat stations along those areas or air stations nearby to take advantage of. So it may require a little bit of traveling, but this is a great place to start. And you can find a lot of these sector maps and most of the information for these units by just easy, quick online searches. So for ideas for unit visits, and here I took a few pictures from actually recent partner activity. So you can see top picture there is actually Mr. Verlinden, the top two pictures, in fact. And Mr. Verlinden is our state coordinator for Oregon, does a fantastic job for us. He hosts an event every single year for accepted students. So he uses these Coast Guard unit visits as a yield event. So if you're a student or parent watching this video right now and you're like, man, I really want to get on a helicopter or a cutter or a small boat station, many of these units and assets are open to the public, and many of these, as far as if you contact those units or those stations, sometimes there will be people there that are very generous with their time. If the operations permitting, they can have you come on the base. But more often than not, what will happen is an admissions volunteer or admissions coordinator will go through and arrange these visits. So I'll come off camera a little bit. Hopefully that brings up the slides for some folks. So top there, and like I said, mentioned, Mr. Verlinden every single year does this yield event at Station Oregon Inlet and at the air station there. So he'll get students to the air station. Oftentimes the air station sectors, district offices, whatever it may be, they require kind of a roster beforehand. So they want to know who's coming, who their parents are. Each base requires certain requirements for drivers. So some drivers require that, or some bases require that drivers, certain driver's license, car, insurance, vehicle registration. They want to know who's coming. They want to know who their guests are. So just be mindful of that if you're talking with these bases, that they may come up with some restrictions for you as far as what to provide prior to the event. Down a couple pictures down here. If you're watching later on, what you'll see is one of our river buoy tenders, and that river tender I think is in Ohio at an event that was held there. So they had a bunch of students come on the base. They sat through an emissions presentation, and then they went and toured the sector there and went on some of the assets. And in the very bottom picture you'll see is some Sea Scouts there, along with Mr. Grant Thomas. Now, Grant is stationed actually out in Colorado, but made a trip out, I believe this is to Miami, or at least to the coastal area where Eagle pulled in, brought some Sea Scouts with him and arranged for a Sea Scout visit on the Eagle. And they all got to put on harnesses and climb aloft on the Eagle. A really amazing opportunity that's pretty unique to guests. Not many people get to climb in the rigging on Eagle. So those are just a couple ideas there. But for the reasons that you can use these events are, start with your interest events. How do you generate interest? How do you get students excited about the Coast Guard Academy? Well, oftentimes bringing them to the unit does just that. So if you can get them there, then fantastic. It really does kind of like seal the deal in many cases. You put a student in the pilot seat or co-pilot seat of a helicopter, you put a student on the bridge of a ship, you put a student face to face with an MSRT, MSST team member or a K9 unit, and all of a sudden, it really, you see the light and the passion in their eyes kind of fire up. So, these are really incredible opportunities. As far as yield events, that is a yield event, and we have a presentation later on this year where we're going to talk about getting to yes and getting a student to accept their appointment to the Coast Guard Academy. This can be one of those opportunities to get a student on board Coast Guard units face-to-face with active duty Coast Guard members, because really it's important for that student, they'll be here for as a cadet for 4 years, but they could potentially be in that service for as long as 30 plus years. So to hear directly from those active duty members who are in the mission, serving in the Coast Guard in different roles, different capacities, at different levels of the organization, is really important to build on some perspective for the student and to get that student to see the bigger picture and to say yes to their Coast Guard Academy appointment. Send-off events, I've seen parents associations and our partners and admissions events and all sorts of folks coming together to hold a send-off event for newly appointed, accepted students. They do those at small boat stations. They do those at sector offices. Base Portsmouth, where I was stationed, they have great facilities for such events. So really, you can expand upon maybe your typical send-off of having it at a local park or a local, library or school, and go more Coast Guard centric to do those. JRTC, Scouts, Civil Air Patrol, Sea Cadets. I mentioned the Eagle event there with Sea Cadets climbing aloft. But getting those students on board these Coast Guard assets is really critical to ignite that passion. And then coming here to the Coast Guard Academy. Now, a lot of folks in those landlocked areas who are unable to take part in those opportunities should certainly know about our online virtual experiences. Those are both the Coast Guard Academy Career Opportunity virtual experience accessed through our website, www.uscga.edu. Go to the admissions page and click on Visit. Or schedule a visit. And then also the career opportunity virtual experience. So they follow the career opportunities both on and off duty to show you the life, family life of Coast Guard officers outside of uniform, of ship drivers, engineers, pilots, small boat station operators. So Lots of great information there online. The Coast Guard Academy, what I recommend for students looking at our school is if they can afford the trip and if it's worth their time, it really does seal the deal for so many students. And the campus visit opportunity is super important to the appointment process and application process. So definitely encourage the participation there. All right, so when you contact these units, you can do this a number of different ways. If you have a connection, so if you're a active duty reservist, a parent whose student is a graduate of here and is stationed somewhere nearby, oftentimes because our service is so small, around 40,000 or fewer members, there is someone who knows anyone at any of these bases, so or any of these units. So really, it's all about establishing a point of contact, someone that you can work with, and the people at those units that you want to work with. It depends on what the unit is. Bases, sectors, districts, onboard cutters, air stations, training centers. Those you want to typically look at getting in touch with a junior officer. You can work with someone kind of more mid-grade to senior level if you want to talk with someone who is perhaps like the executive officer who does a lot of the personnel day-to-day things, and they will put you in touch with a junior officer as a project officer. If you are going to a small boat station, only a few number of small boat stations actually have officers there, warrant officers, senior chiefs, master chiefs, chief petty officers. Those are the folks that you're going to want to outreach to at small boat stations. So for many parts of the country, rivers, inland waterways, small boat stations is one of the most prevalent and available sources of Coast Guard units. What I would say is, that you can reach out directly to these units. They all have non-emergency phone numbers to reach. You can just do a quick search of these units. If you are calling them and saying that you're representing, as a volunteer representative on behalf of the admissions office, that would be an appropriate, professional, and absolutely proper way to initiate that conversation. Asking to speak to a junior officer or someone who could potentially be a project officer for a Coast Guard Academy admissions related event. Then you want to bring up the number of students that would be participating potentially, the number of participants from our side, the admissions partner or admissions side. So those are all great. Those are all great conversations to have. If you have active duty admissions partners in your regions or in your states, they are a great first touch for these events because they have access to a global access list through their internal communications process in the Coast Guard, so they can get instant updates on who the officers are, who the senior command staff or the OINCs, officers in charge, are, to go and talk to those folks directly. I would say avoid calling the top offices, so avoid calling the admiral, avoid calling the 06, but try to get a hold of perhaps the executive officer or get a hold of the operations officers. In most cases, those are 03s to 05s, and they are the most helpful as far as they'll be aware most often of who to delegate your request to. At the 06, 07, 08, 09 levels, they're thinking more kind of strategic. They're a little above who that might be delegated down to. Although what will end up happening is it'll get delegated back down to the 03, 04, 05 level. So just to start there would probably be your best course of action. You can also call those watch offices. So by calling the watch office, what often happens is they'll give you a little preamble that says, if this is emergency, call it, hang up and dial 911. Some watch offices have both a non-emergency and emergency numbers. So call the non-emergency numbers. Once you're talking to a watch office representative, oftentimes those are junior enlisted or auxiliary members or junior officers. Request to be transferred to the operations officer or the executive officer to talk about an academy admissions related activity that you'd like to hold at their unit. Be mindful of those operational demands and holiday routines. So coming up during the holiday season, a lot of these bases or cutters, they go on holiday stand down. So they're not able to assist as readily, or they don't have as many personnel available. And then during operational demand, so hurricane season, large search and rescue cases, whatever it may call a unit underway. So you might set up something that then is canceled, or you have to delay because of operations. So when you're working with students, just tell them to be mindful that, hey, at any moment, this is a live Coast Guard unit. At any moment, something could happen to draw these units away, and we may have to cancel or change this event. So just be aware of that to set expectations. Know the base policy for visitors ahead of time. Like I had mentioned, they're going to want to have a guest roster, so they want to know who's coming. You want to find out, can guests drive on the base? Is parking available? Is it a weekend or a weekday event? Like for instance, Base Boston, there's some wonderful assets available at Base Boston, but Base Boston parking is very limited. So there's off-base parking opportunities. The front gate would need a roster. They would need to be checking people in. Establish a POC, a point of contact. So know who they are, how to get a hold of them, their cell phone number, their rank, what office they work in, what building they're in, or what ship they're on, so that you know how to get a hold of them when you're planning and executing your unit visit event. And then any restrictions to the group activities or the group size. So if it's an Eagle event, is there anywhere that the group can't go on Eagle? If it is an event at an air station, is there any place on the air station that you don't want the group going? If it's on a ship, can your ship hold a group size of 100, or can it only hold a group size of 20? So come up with those pieces of information as well when you're planning your unit or site visit. And then notify students and parents. So oftentimes a student might not relay information to the parents, so make sure that the parents are brought into this as well. And then follow up with them as you get closer to the event actually occurring. So in some cases, you might have an event a month out, you send out your initial comms, you get some great replies, but then a month goes by, people might forget about it. So you're going to want to just keep folks in the loop as it gets closer and closer. And of course, bring the admissions office and the admissions officer into any event planning that you're doing, so that the state coordinator, the admissions officer is all aware of those various events. I talked a little about the virtual experience on uscga.edu, so that is absolutely fantastic and highly recommended for anyone who can't make the journey here to CGA. And I encourage folks to go on and explore that. And then last but not least, submit your event summaries after the event is complete. Let us know who went with you. So if you provide a roster to our office as well, we can go in and when planning, scheduling those events in Hobson's and on the calendar, we can go in and make sure that students receive credit for attending those events because it shows a great attention to detail for them in their application, commitment to the Coast Guard, commitment to the Academy. They're excited, they're energized. We like to see that. And for auxiliary members, of course, record your information on the event form, but also on your aux data systems. And that's all I have. I will bring back up my video again. So it's a real quick presentation, kind of very basics here. I would say if you do plan an event to deconflict with other partners in your state, and usually you can funnel all things through the state coordinators, who I'm currently on a phone call campaign with. So if you're scheduling an event and someone else is scheduling an event, you're not trying to use the same location, you're not trying to invite the same students. If like I saw last spring, the Colorado Partner and Parents Association delegation had a great send-off event where they all worked together to get most of the Colorado students together for a picnic and then sent them on their way. So lots of great opportunities there. Want to see them continue to happen. I hope I was able to offer some insight into the process. Again, a lot of this is on the partner autonomy. A lot of this is on your planning and preparation if you're excited and interested in trying to pull something off. And I'm happy to take any questions, comments, or concerns. that you may have. So yes, so like Betsy brings up, a little landlocked there in the Metro Atlanta area. So flotilla events, what I'll say there is that the Coast Guard auxiliary and flotilla events may not be the ideal venue for a student yield campaign or a student interest campaign. Now, if the flotilla has a meeting space that can be used as a presentation space, fantastic. But mostly, like for instance in Georgia, those events are going to be kind of centered more or are located more towards the coastal region. So in Savannah, you have Air Station Savannah. You have many great small boat stations off of the coast of Georgia. So some volunteers may be a little landlocked or restricted as to where they can host those events. And then you may have to adapt as far as pushing ideas out towards the coast where you may have other partners, or working with our office to put partners on orders to get them traveling a little bit further distance and possibly even staying overnight. We can work on those on a case-by-case basis. If you come up with a great idea that has a good return on investment, and we can, we can articulate paying for it and funding it, then we can try to make that happen. Great question. Any other questions? Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me again for another one of these partner webinars. As always, please email, phone call with any additional comments, questions, concerns, and we are always looking for new topics. So if you come up with a topic that you want to touch on, please let me know. I want to know about it. I want to help you know more about it, and it's going to be great. So thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, and as always, go Bears.